I don't know, the author has a, I don't know, PhD or something like that. And I'll never forget what he said. He turned to me and he said, "But Ty, is he worth a damn?" So pardon my French there. Is he worth a damn? That was a question that he had for me. And I remember, I could still remember as if it was yesterday, going like, what's this guy talking about? What does he mean? It took me many years to kind of coalesce. I mean, for all the ideas to coalesce and for me to go, oh, I know what this guy's talking about. And I know now. I didn't know then. It was like he spoke to me in parables, you know? And so I'm going to share with you what this means and why this is so relevant for you today. What he meant was summed up in this little book here as well. And this is why I call it the billionaire's brain, because this guy right here, Charlie Munger, you know, I talk about him a good bit. He's a billionaire. This guy that I was driving around the back of this pickup truck around this ranch, he wasn't quite a billionaire, but he was an investor that dealt with large sums of money, close to, I'm sure, $1 billion or more. So I was like, what is this guy, Mike, in Mississippi thinking? And then years later, I read this book, and there's a famous quote in there, or I'm trying to make it famous. You may have heard me talk about it a lot if you're on my Twitter, Instagram, or on my Book of the Day newsletter. Charlie Munger said, to get what you want, you have to deserve what you want. The world is not yet a crazy enough place to reward a whole bunch of undeserving people. Well, what does that mean exactly? Well, what it means, okay, is that most people in life are victims of their own making. You're going to learn this later in the 67 steps. They are focused on the lottery approach to life. Tomorrow's going to be better than today, just because I think it's going to be better than today. They're waiting, wishing upon a star. Whereas the billionaires, whether it be Mike, Charlie Munger, they're saying things like, but is that person worth a lot? He wasn't talking about money. When Charlie Munger says, to get what you want, you have to deserve what you want, he's not just talking about money. He's talking about anything. You want to make it in Hollywood. You want to make it as a professional athlete. You want to be a good parent, a good son, good daughter, a good spouse. You want to be in shape. You want to lose 100 pounds. You know what the formula for losing 100 pounds is? To lose 100 pounds, you have to deserve to lose 100 pounds. That means no shortcuts. Doesn't mean you can't be efficient, but no shortcuts. You want to make $1 million? Once you deserve $1 million and you give the world a little time to catch up, there'll be $1 million in your bank account. If you don't have the amount of money that you want, Charlie Munger would say, well, remember, my friend, the world's not yet a crazy enough place to reward a whole bunch of undeserving people. Now, I've kind of summed this up in this, deserve it factor. How big is your deserve it factor? Like, is it a 1? Is it 100? People who deserve a lot get a lot. Now, continuing this conversation because it gets a little deeper. What makes somebody? So if it's true what Charlie Munger says, you have to deserve it, then what's the foundational thing first that makes you deserve stuff? Well, I believe it's what Mike was telling me. Got to be worth a damn. What does that mean? I'm going to sum it up in one simple word: awareness. Awareness. How aware are you of your environment? I'll do a little test on you. If you're watching this on a computer, look down at your keyboard. Okay, you're looking at it. What's the F5 button do on your keyboard? What's the F5 do? What's F7 do? What does Control plus W do? Now you might say to me, Tyler, what does that matter? I'm not in the computer business. Well, if you're in the modern world, you're probably using a computer. And every single day, you're looking at a keyboard. And maybe you've looked at it for thousands of times, but yet not observant enough. I know myself. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm preaching to myself, not just talking to you. When you walk in a room, this is one of the 67 steps, an Amish guy told me there's 3 kinds of people in the world. Sam Chet. He said, Ty, 3 kinds. People who watch things happen. People who make things happen. And people who wonder what happened. See, when you're wondering about life, which most people are, they're wondering about each and every foundational area of life. If you say to them, how many grams of protein should you eat in a day? How many grams of sugar should you maximum? That should be your maximum intake. The average person in the world, they don't know. They don't know. They wonder. I wonder. Their awareness of life is low. So to deserve more, you have to start with the factor, the worth a damn, the deserve it factor. And that's made up of a whole bunch of intangible things, right? That's why I said this is a deep one of the 67 steps. This one step is something you may want to listen to more than once. I put it first because it's the foundation. Warren Buffett, the business partner of this guy right here, and for many years was the wealthiest man in the world. Not just the wealthiest, but respected, intelligent, well-read. He said, he was speaking. There's a good YouTube video. You may be able to find it. I don't know if actually it might not have been on YouTube. And he said, he was speaking to a whole bunch of students, and somebody asked the question, like, what should you do with your life? Or how can we become successful like you, Mr. Buffett? And he had a fascinating answer. Warren Buffett said back, he said, well, I want you to imagine you're back in high school, and there's like a magic genie, and it grants you one wish. And that wish is you can choose any student in that room besides yourself, and you will receive 10% of all the money that they make for the rest of their life. 10%. He said, how would you choose that student? Would you bet on the kid that's the captain of the football team, the valedictorian, the prettiest girl, the best looking guy? Would you? Is that a good way to gauge who's going to be the most successful in life? Would it be the kid who always gets straight A's, or the kid who never does well in class and is always doing other things? It's an interesting question. Think about it for a second. I think for myself, I would look for a set of intangibles. It's not easy. Remember I said I was driving in that pickup truck and I said, oh, you should read this book because it's by a guy with a PhD. But the trappings, the outer trappings, did not confuse the billionaire brain. And Mike's like, tell me more. What makes him worth it? And it's intangibles. So my question to you is, who would you bet on? And a more important question is, would you bet on yourself? You could have 10%. So if you pick the guy or a girl who's going to become a billionaire, you'll get 10%. That's $100 million. Pick wrong and you'll get nothing. Who would you bet on? And that set of intangibles that you would use to select. Because remember, back in high school, you don't know for sure. There's no guaranteed way to know. It's not always the kid who comes from the best family. It's not always the kid who's the smartest. Not always the prettiest. It's not always the strongest. It's going to be one of the next 67 steps, what Professor Megginson said on Darwin's theory. It's about the strongest or the most intelligent that survives, the most changeable. In this case, what we're talking about today is the set of intangibles that increase your deserve it factor. The question is, would you bet on yourself? And if not, why not? And then all you got to do is change those things, and your deserve it factor goes through the roof. Now, the intangible trait, because there's lots of intangibles, right? There's courage, and there's patience, there's perseverance, and there's wisdom, and there's focus, and all intensity, all these things. The one that I would look at first, and I'm gonna tell you why I select this. I would look for awareness. Now, I'm in Mensa, and they put out a little journal on human intelligence. And I remember years ago reading, they said, if you have a child and you want to know if they're exceptionally intelligent or gifted, but they're only 2 or 3 years old, how will you know? And they gave a very interesting answer. They said, look at kids like 3-year-olds, all toddlers in a preschool or whatever, and they said, which of the kids makes observations that nobody else in the room notices? They say that's the best indicator in that, and whatever, this is just one study, the best indicator of future potential. You see, awareness is the quickest path to increasing the intangibles, to increasing what you deserve, to increasing your worth a damn factor. So I was around the same time that I was in Mississippi, I was at Joel Salatin's farm, my first mentor, one of my first mentors. And Joel Salatin's a fast walker. We're walking through this farm, and Joel Salatin goes, and I used to I would in this phase, I read this book about being really in touch with nature, Tom Brown. And so I was just looking at the grass and all this. And Joel turned to me, he's like, you realize we just walked by where the cows were and the gate is open. I was going to see if you were going to say something, Ty, because those cows are going to get out. And I said, oh, I was just focused on the big picture. I wasn't focusing. He said to me, he said, Ty, there's a time to stop and smell the roses, and the time isn't now.